Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I am Chris, this is Dirty Trucker 08. I've been having a little bit of a grounding issue with Big Chief, so today we're going to install a ground bar. Let's get into it. Here we are looking at the battery. As you can see, I've got the shutoff on here, which works out super good. Ground bar that we're going to be installing. Plenty of options on there. This one came off Amazon. It wasn't very expensive. But the problems we're having is the way this connection works in here. But these connections right in here where the two grounds actually come into the post are kind of crappy. The wires aren't super great. So we're just going to put on new grounds to hopefully fix that. Now what I'm wanting to do with this particular ground, I actually want to weld this thing inside the fender here. We're going to have to bend this open just a little bit so it's a little bit better angle for us to work with, but that'll give me a good solid place that I can ground. I have picked up two different ground cables, one of which is going to go over to the motor. The other one is going to replace this whole connection here, because it does have the new connection on the end of it there. So we can connect that over to the battery, and then we'll be able to run another strap over to somewhere on the motor, and then another one is going to go down on the chassis. So I will have my body, the chassis, and the engine all grounded together. But this thing, with its 90-degree bend there, will be a lot easier to work with if we can open that up just a little bit. So let's take this thing over to the vise. Alright, so to keep from bending this end where it mounts onto here, what I'm going to do first is just take the block itself off of the bracket. And it went on like this, so I'm going to put this end in the vise so that I'm not tweaking it sideways or anything. Just a little bit of clamping force. Grab yourself a pair of pliers, and I'm just going to grab the end of this and just kind of open it up a little bit. It doesn't need to be super big. But it opens it up from that 90. If I need to bring it back down, I can some. And this end that we kind of flared a little bit, just take that back to flat so it can weld onto the frame or the side of the body there super easy, hopefully. Now we can put this back on here. Goes on the inside. And we'll just screw these screws right back in. Alright, so what we've done, I went ahead and took the Sharpie and marked out where I want to be able to weld that to the inner fender here. Now in this location our prop rod does come down and it goes right across the top of that, but it'll be above it so it won't actually connect with the ground bar that we're putting in here. So next I've got to take the grinder out, clean up this metal a little bit so that we can take the welder and just kind of give this thing a few tacks to hold it on there, and we can get started connecting cables. We've got our ground block. We've got the bracket for it actually welded to the inner fender here. So the body ground is solid, frame and motor, which will be these two cables here. We are going to have to cut ends because like this particular cable has two clamps on it, or two ends that we can put a bolt through on it. So we're going to have to cut one off to slide into the block, and the other one is going to go over somewhere on the motor or chassis. I'm not sure which yet, which cable's which. So let's get an end cut off. I'm going to kind of figure out off camera which cable's going where, and I'll show you where I'm putting them. So we've got the battery clamp piece that's actually going to hook to the battery itself wedged up in there. Now we're just going to put this, drive this screw down, let that get tight. There we go. That is one clamp, battery post clamp, ready to go on. Now we did cut this wire over, which gave us this piece left over. Now this is going to have to come onto the clamp or the ground bar also. I think we're just going to run this one over to the engine. We'll call this one our engine ground. And I think I'm just going to hit this bolt right here on top of the AC compressor. We'll just run this under, over kind of like that, and let that set right on there. That'll give us a solid ground right to the engine itself. So all I've got to do is clear a little bit of insulation off the end, put this in our second spot, and then we'll clamp that one down over there. Alright, just installed our third cable. It runs down here. Get my arm down in here. Here's our cable end. And we're going to be going on to that bolt right there, which is actually a motor mount bolt, but we're on the chassis side. So that'll be our chassis ground. My shoulder kind of thing. Ooh, and that just barely clears that stud. It's kind of hard to see, but if you look right there in the middle, you can see that ground right under that stud. Alright, so we just pulled the ground off of the isolator here. It's got a chassis ground attached to it that we have effectively replaced by going to here. This is going to be connecting to there, so this other ground that's on here, this factory ground, is going to be going into the fourth big option on this ground block that we're installing here. And that is probably a big portion of the problems I've been having. This whole end connection has been crap. So let's take a little of this protectant off. Expose us some good wire, hopefully. Try and get down to some cleaner cabling. And as you can see, or I can see, hopefully you can see, the corrosion goes way down inside the end of the cable itself. That's all from oxygen getting in there over many, many years. This is a 97. It's rusted, it's had a hard life. So I'm going to try and clean these up a little bit, and then we're going to poke it in. Alright, so the factory ground, we went ahead and cleaned it up a little bit. Slightly better than it was. Still not stellar, but with the other grounds on here, it shouldn't make that big of a difference. We're going to put it in that fourth hole. I did pull the little stud lock out just so I could see a little bit better, just because of the angle I'm working at here on the side of the fender. Keeping a little bit of pressure on that cable with the left hand up into it. as I tighten this down. There we go. 4 grounds. We'll put this one onto the battery and we should be good to go. Let's turn it that way. That is the ground bar that we've put on. The one wire goes straight to the battery, which does have the disconnect, so I can turn it on and off whenever I need to, because this thing sits quite a bit. Then we've got motor, chassis, and the original ground that's heading to whatever it's heading to. So this thing should hopefully have a little less issues. And that's it. Put a little bit of ground bar on there. That came from Amazon. It wasn't very expensive at all. I think it was $7 and some change. The 2 cables I got from AutoZone here in town. Both of them were $8 to $12 a piece, somewhere in there. So not a whole lot of money, a little bit of peace of mind. I've been having, like I said earlier, a little bit of some grounding issues. Stuff's been turning on and off and flickering and not quite doing what it's supposed to. Hopefully this will help take care of part of that. If you guys like the video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.